It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set. Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeart Radio application. Download it today. It is free. Hope you are doing well. Again, Clemson, the Cardiac Cats, survive another close ball game down to the wire. 4 plays from the 2-yard line, essentially, for Louisville, but they can't get the JOBDONE, the job done against your Clemson Tigers as they win 30-24. Surviving. You know, the song back in the 80s, Eye of the Tiger, was written by a group called Survivor. And that is exactly what this team is. They are just survivors. They're not the most beautiful football club you ever had a chance to watch, but they just continue to fight. They're scrappy. They're resilient. I mean, you picked the phrase. That's what they are. They're not beautiful. DJ Uyunglele, I'm going to be honest, I thought for a minute that I was going to be on the air actually eating my words here with you today. Like I was going to print them out and eat them, because I said before the game, I said on Friday during the show, I said even on social media that I thought that DJ was going to have his best performance as a Clemson Tiger. I thought, well, let me scratch that, reverse it. I didn't say that, but I said I thought he'd have a good game. And he did. And he went 18 of 30, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, a little banged up. Had a rushing touchdown as well, a huge rushing touchdown. Clemson again scores 13 points in the fourth quarter. They hold Louisville to 0, which is key, 30-24. And again, that late stand. A couple of young guys make some plays. Andrew Makuba at safety. R.J. Mickens at safety. The Lone Star State Stallions. Those 2 guys from the state of Texas making plays for Clemson on the back end. Again, coming up in hour number 2, William Qualkenbush will join the program. Looking forward to catching up with him. Will Shipley had 13 carries for 40 yards. Not a huge day offensively for the Tigers on the ground. Tyson Pumachan had to come in, and in one instance, late in the ball game, Pumachan comes in and throws a deep ball. I mean, a shocking play. Clemson caught Louisville off guard. They got a pass interference on the play call. Beau Collins begins to emerge. 6 receptions, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Dakari Collins nearly with a – and look, I know people have put some posts up on social media believing that Dakari was in, and man, it was close. I can just tell you it was close. I think if the official ruled him in, he's probably in. Since the official ruled him out, he ends up being out. I mean, that's one of those where whatever the call on the field is probably going to stand, because there's not an angle that can give you the exact view that the official had in that moment. And you just kind of got to go with him, whether you agree or disagree with it. Because I'm going to tell you, when you look at the photo of Dakari Collins, you'll say to yourself, yeah, he looks like he's in. It looks like there's a sliver of grass between Dakari's foot and the out of bounds line. It could be a shadow. I mean, who knows? All I know is this: a heck of a grab by Dakari Collins. Didn't count. Would have been huge. Nonetheless, the Tigers survive. They do lose Joe Ngata for a couple of weeks. We'll hear from Dabo Sweeney coming up on the program in just a little bit, his Sunday teleconference. Ngata got banged up, and you knew he was hurt because he didn't finish his route. And look, I've been critical of Joe Ngata just from the standpoint of The fact that, you interview him and he's just sort of dry. There's not a lot of depth to his answers. What did you see? You could say something like, so Joe, what were you seeing out there on that third down play where you made a huge reception? Well, they were playing defense. I was playing offense, and sometimes you win those battles. Right. Okay, next question. But Joe Ngata goes down. He'll be down for a couple of weeks. They hope to have him back for the South Carolina matchup coming up in late November. And then, of course, for all the Gamecocks peeking over the fence and hanging out with us today, hey, your boy Swanee. I'm surprised Dan Mullen was allowed on the flight home. 40-17, the South Carolina Gamecocks knock off the Florida Gators Saturday. Not quite 63-17. And again, 63-17, of course, the annual subscription rate for a premium subscription on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Go over there and put the .com on it. Doggone it. ClemsonSportsTalk.com, just $63.17 for 1 year of coverage. That's about 17 cents a day. By the way, the South Carolina Gamecocks, 40-17 over Florida. And now I think you have to start asking yourself, if you're a South Carolina fan, how realistic are the chances that you do make a bowl game? Because you have won a game here in this matchup against Florida that very few people, yours humbly included, would have projected to be a South Carolina win. The Gamecocks now face Missouri, a very winnable game with an opportunity to pick up their 6th win of the year and qualify for a bowl. Their final 2 games are against Auburn and Clemson. The Clemson game, I'm going to tell you this too. The Clemson game, I think if you are a South Carolina fan, you're looking at it a little bit differently. You're looking at it as an opportunity maybe. Clemson has not looked invincible by any stretch of the imagination. And South Carolina, while not playing spectacular football, I think the final result in that Florida game had more to do with Florida and their situation with Dan Mullen than South Carolina. But the Gamecocks are going to probably go bowling. Now, if they lose this weekend against Missouri, that might change things up. But at this point, kudos to the Gamecocks for crushing Florida on Saturday. Again, South Carolina jumped on them. They were up 30-10 at the half, tacked on another 10 in the third quarter. It's 40-10 over Florida. 40-10 over the Florida Gators. Jason Brown, the quarterback for South Carolina, goes 14-24 for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. And people are like, what? Where's this guy been all season? So again, South Carolina 5-4, drops Florida to 4-5. I told you that I thought it was a great hire. I really believe that the Shane Beamer hire was a great hire. And I'm not saying that this lone victory is the marker of what's to come by any means, because again, this Florida team, I think this Florida team is, I don't know if the word is selling out Dan Mullen or the players aren't bought into Dan Mullen, but there's clearly a disconnect going on right now in Gainesville. And it just they feel discombobulated. But you know what? It's a dub. It's a win. And South Carolina won it convincingly, 40-17 over the Florida Gators on Saturday night. That game between the Tigers and the Gamecocks could be a lot more interesting on November the 27th in Williams-Brice Stadium. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line, be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere. 803-450-0086. But back to Clemson and Louisville. Can we talk for a minute about that final drive, the final drive by the Louisville Cardinals and the plays that made it? Clemson's stand inside the 5-yard line. So Louisville takes over the football, and Malik Cunningham hits on a 45-yard pass to Tyler Harrell. An incredible passing catch. Just really good play. Matter of fact, Dabo Swinney was talking about it and said, look, we don't want you to have to take a pass interference there, but Mario Goodrich, that's a chance to take a pass interference there. The clock is with you. You'd rather give up 15 than 45. So then, so they essentially go from their own 25 to the Clemson 30 on one play. Now it's 1st and 10 at the 30. They lose a yard on first down at 2nd and 11. Cunningham hits a pass up the middle. Mitchell stretches out but can't quite get his hands on it. And now it's 3rd and 11. Cunningham then has a keeper for 10 yards, gets pushed out of bounds. Like watching it live, I thought maybe he got the first down. They didn't give it to him. Now it's 4th and 1 at the 21-yard line. And Cunningham rolls the pocket as far as he can roll it, all the way to the sidelines, then throws the ball right down the sideline. I mean, like a laser down the sideline. And just an incredible grab. An incredible grab that is first ruled incomplete and then overturned after review. And when you watch it, Justin Marshall just cradles the ball and brings it in. And you're thinking, well, you know what? If you lose this game, the incredible play on the first snap of this series, on the big 45-yard pass and looking back on the miscue by Mario Goodrich by not taking the pass interference there and just not letting the kid catch the ball at all. Then this play, you go, you know what it is? It is what it is. Kind of like the situation that Clemson had a little earlier with Will Brown on the punt return, and the player gets blocked into him, and that causes him to drop it, and that leads to points for Louisville. Like, it's just like, yeah, you know what? You're a little snake bit this year. And in that moment, Clemson and that defense had every reason to feel snake bit. Now it's 1st and 2 at the 2. Jalen Mitchell runs up the left side, no gain. R.J. Mickens with a tackle. What was incredible about that play more than anything is of the 4 plays at the goal line, that is the one that felt like, to me, the most like Louisville was going to score. I mean, they've got leverage. Mitchell's out in space. He does have to take a little step, but he does kind of stride back just a little bit towards his own end zone to give himself a little more space to try to turn the corner, and Mickens just trips him. And maybe one of the more impressive things that was happening outside of that was another freshman, was Andrew Makuba, who gets kind of chopped and then is crab crawling to stay up. And I think Makuba probably gets there and makes a tackle. At least slows down Jalen Mitchell a little bit. Instead, now it's 2nd and 2 at the 2. Malik Cunningham tries to quarterback keeper right up the middle, just gets hammered by Mickens and Skalski for a loss of 3. Now you got a 3rd and 5 at the 5. Malik Cunningham, who, again, Dabo Swinney wanted to compare to Lamar Jackson. A lot of people didn't want to hear that conversation. A lot of people give Dabo Swinney grief for hyperbole. And I know how good Lamar Jackson was. But you got to give Malik Cunningham credit, man. He is 12 of 20 for 174 yards through the air, 22 attempts for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, he was Mr. Everything. And if he doesn't roll his ankle, that might certainly have been a different outcome in that ball game. 3rd and 5 at the 5. Malik Cunningham with a rush for 3 yards. Again, tackled by R.J. Mickens and Nolan Turner. Now, in between those 2 plays, by the way, there was one little thing that happened I didn't bring up. And Dabo Swinney expounded on it on Saturday night after the ball game. After the 2nd down play, Clemson inexplicably calls a timeout. Now, I get it. You want to have time when you get the ball back. Like, I understand that. But Louisville's in a pressure situation with no timeouts. And there's 39 seconds, and the clock is winding. The question that I had was, well, if you were willing to take it after 2nd down, why wouldn't you take it after 3rd down and try to save your offense some time? 20 seconds or whatever it would have been, maybe more. Like, if you're going to call it once, why not call it the 2nd time? But they didn't. After that 3rd down play where Malik Cunningham gains 3 yards and is tackled, the clock's now running and Louisville's under pressure. Then they roll Malik Cunningham to the right. He's got two options at wide receiver. I thought maybe they were going to try to hit a throwback, but Clemson played it well. So you didn't have any concerns on that front. But then at the end, Cunningham's ankle, ironically, sort of crumbles on him as he's trying to make a cut. I don't think he's going to get to the end zone anyway. The Clemson defense was just smothering inside the red zone. And Malik Cunningham goes to his knees, and the Tigers take a W. 30-24, the final score. Clemson again, not overly spectacular in any regard, but still good enough. I mean, struggled on third down conversions the entire night. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where this team finally started converting some third downs. They were 5 of 14 for the entire ball game. 0 for 2 in the 0 for 2 in the first quarter, 1 for 3 in the second quarter, 1 for 5 in the third quarter, and finally 4 of 9 in the fourth quarter. 44% in the fourth quarter. The rest of the game, they were terrible at third down conversions. But Clemson found a way, and they're still in the hunt for the Atlantic Coast Conference championship game. Now, the scenarios that have to play out there are not outstanding, especially given the fact that North Carolina Wake Forest game wasn't a conference game, and additionally, the fact that NC State took care of Florida State this weekend. It would seem that the odds of NC State faltering 2 more times is quite difficult. And that would mean to me that the only way Clemson gets into the ACC championship, and again, there's still a lot that can happen, but I think the thing you're probably leaning on, if you're just going to be honest with yourself, is probably that 3-way tie taking place. Probably that 3-way tie taking place. I mean, Wake Forest and NC State face off this Saturday. And if Wake wins it, then NC State would have to lose against Syracuse or North Carolina. The North Carolina game being perhaps a likely scenario. But then what that presents, because Wake Forest doesn't have a loss in the league at this point, is that Wake Forest would have to lose if they were to beat NC State this weekend and open up this scenario where North Carolina beats NC State later. Wake Forest would have to lose the weekend after they face Clemson against Boston College. So all of a sudden, Boston College, now the good news is Phil Jurkovec back for the Eagles, but Wake would have to lose back-to-back games. And even that, I don't know if that would end up being enough. I guess technically in that scenario it would, because if you believe that NC State loses 2 more games, then the Wolfpack would have 3 conference losses, which would put Clemson ahead of NC State, and you'd hold the tiebreaker over Wake Forest. So that, the scenarios are not great for Clemson to get there. The scenarios are simply not great at this point for Clemson to get there. It would have been a lot nicer had the Wolfpack lost this past Saturday to Florida State. And again, that's my rudimentary breakdown of it. I have not studied it any further to kind of give you any ideas on how else it could work out. But that would be one way I know for sure, because Clemson would hold the tiebreaker and both teams would have 2 losses in the league if it were Clemson and Wake Forest. But what you have to have happen in that scenario is NC State's also got to lose to North Carolina. That may be the most likely, honestly, that Wake beats NC State this Saturday, and then NC State goes on and loses to North Carolina to give them their 3rd conference loss. And then you just have Clemson beat Wake Forest, and then Boston College beat Wake Forest. And that's it. That's it. You're in the ACC championship based off of my numbers. If I'm wrong, you let me know. 803-450-0086. We're rolling along here on a Monday afternoon. Again, the Cardiac Cats, the Eye of the Tiger survivors, your Clemson Tigers, find a way. We'll hear from Dabo Swinney his Sunday teleconference right after this. Back at it on a Monday afternoon, Lawton Swan with you. Dabo Swinney met with the media on Sunday to give his recap after getting a chance to watch the film, etc., from Clemson's 30-24 victory over Florida State. We've got the full audio for our premium subscribers on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. But here's what Dabo Swinney had to say after Clemson's win, or at least after having a chance to watch the film on Clemson's win. This is part of his Sunday teleconference.
All right, well, really, again, just recapping last night. Great win. Just love the heart and grit of our guys. And, just we did not the start that we wanted, for sure. Down 17-7, after only 14 offensive snaps and, only led 4 minutes of the game. But, man, just found a way to win. And really proud of our guys for that. Offensively, we were ready. Love how we competed, handled the adversity. DJ did a good job of taking care of the ball, no turnovers. Our offensive line is growing. Our receivers are really doing a much better job on the perimeter. Get some good things outside. But we're getting better. And, the 3-play opening touchdown drive was awesome to see. Back-to-back weeks, we've had game-winning drives in the fourth quarter. We had to have it. 2-minute drive with 1:30 from the -14. It was just great to see. And, again, just to see the confidence growing in our guys. Really pleased with that. Obviously, the 4th and 1 on the goal line was a critical miss for us. And, still some mistakes that we can improve upon. But really just, proud of how they hung in there and got it done. And then defensively, disappointed in how we started, the opening drive, and we just did not do a good job with the quarterback run. Poor job on the option, especially with our alley player. And, so that was disappointing, but found a way, though, to get some really key stops, especially right before the half and then in the fourth quarter. We had some critical stops. Obviously, the goal line stand, 1st and goal from the 2. It was amazing. That was amazing.
Now, Dabo Swinney mentioned the fact that they won back-to-back games coming back in the fourth quarter. And, again, that's the first time that's happened under his tenure. But listen to how long it's been since that's happened for Clemson.
Louisville's a good team, and they're a lot better than their record for sure. To give you some perspective, the last back-to-back come from behind fourth quarter wins we've had around here was 1974. I think Mike O'Kane was the quarterback. So been a long time since we've been in that situation for sure. And first time for me as the head coach. So just proud of our guys and appreciate our fans that went up there. We had a good group, very supportive. And injury-wise, I think most everybody has a good chance of being back this week. The biggest injury for us looks like Ngata. He's probably going to be out at least a couple of weeks with a foot injury. So that's probably the one for sure that I know will be out. And then I think we've got a couple other guys that we're hopeful on. We'll see how it goes through the week. But
so you got to go all the way back to 1974 to find that. That's kind of wild. And I thought about it, like the Boston College game a year ago and that Notre Dame game a year ago, I think would have qualified for that. But, of course, Clemson lost that Notre Dame game. Now, Coach Swinney was also asked about the play I mentioned in the opening segment about Tyson Pumachan coming in. They flanked DJ out, Pumachan with a deep ball. And Swinney says that's something they've kind of had available and just decided they'd pull it out in that moment.
Well, it was just something that we knew coming into the game at some point we wanted to do. And, that was just felt like that was the right time. And, felt like we'd definitely get a one-on-one matchup. And Beau did a nice job in the field as well. So we really had, 2 options of where to go with the ball. And so that was a big play for us. And, we knew we wanted to get the ball down the field, and we did. Throughout the game, we had some nice plays, really caught the ball. We really only had 1 drop. That was in the first quarter on a really nice back shoulder ball to Ross. It's really the only miss that we had from a receiver standpoint. So it was a big play for us. And again, good to get Tyson in there. And he did a nice job. Obviously, when DJ hurt his knee, we put him in there, and then we got DJ out, left him in there for that drive, and we ended up getting a field goal off of that. So he did a good job for us. But that was just something that, he can throw the ball. We want to make sure that we use him in that way and make him have to play honest, defense there, so that we can keep what we need from a run game in that personnel.
Now, one of the guys who got banged up in that ball game was Andrew Booth Jr. Took sort of a tough hit, and he was asked. Dabo Swinney was asked if that put Booth in the concussion protocol.
They had him in concussion protocol, but it was again, it was more of a stinger with him. But anytime you get a upper body shot like that, there's a process that you have to go through. They've got a whole protocol, and he actually looked really good after the game and was having fun and all that stuff. So we're hopeful based on where he was today. He and Kobe hopefully both will be able to play this weekend, but we'll see.
Coach Swinney was also asked about some comments after the game from Coach Satterfield, who asked about Clemson schematically, what they tried to do defensively to shut down the Cardinals there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously want to not let them come downhill on us. We want to make them have to run around us, and hopefully we can leverage the ball and use our speed and those type of things. But I thought Nolan did a great job. Skowski did a great job. Xavier Thomas coming from behind, running the guy down. But really, we did a good job, zoning. They're zoning the coverage off, and because they had he had an option to run or pass right there at the end. But it's the field. It's just hard. I know it's just 2 yards, but when it's so compressed and you're not having to defend the length of a field, you got everybody there, and so your speed shows up. So if you can be really stout up front, obviously you got to cover the guys, but we got some guys that can run, and so we can win up front and not be soft. We've got good speed that can leverage the ball and give us a chance to make the play.
803-450-0086, the show that shakes the Southland, rolling along on a Monday afternoon. We'll come back and hear more from Swinney's Sunday teleconference. The show that shakes the Southland on a Monday. Lawton Swan hanging out with you again. Dabo Swinney's Sunday teleconference. All of it's available on our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. One of the players who didn't make the trip was Tyler Venables. He was down with the flu, and Swinney was asked if some of the early runs by Malik Cunningham, including a 51-yarder, were a byproduct of a guy like Tyler Venables not being there.
Yeah, definitely Tyler. He had the flu and literally was, he got canceled Friday. Like, he was trying to go, but he just couldn't get well enough to go. And so definitely would have been a guy that helped us. But Mickens, he made some mistakes early, but man, he got it corrected, and he was in on, I think, 3 of those hits on the goal line. And he's a very coachable guy, takes a lot of pride, but we definitely miss Tyler, that's for sure. He's a good player. In the scheme and how we were trying to execute against them, we just didn't do a good job on a few of those plays, and it cost us. But because again, it's just basically triple option football, and we did a poor job on a handful of plays, but we did settle in and did a much better job as the game went. And certainly in the fourth quarter, for them to go 1 of 8 on 3rd and 4th down, that was huge, because it gave us the ball back offensively, gave us a chance to go score and get the lead.
With Joe Ngata banged up and Clemson's wideout group, obviously Frank Ladson's been absent. Joe's been banged up. Coach Swinney was asked to maybe elaborate a little bit on what this wideout group might look like coming up with the UConn game, then moving forward towards Wake Forest, and ultimately the South Carolina matchup.
Well, EJ he's a top 3 receiver on this team, and he had a good family situation, and so he couldn't practice. He didn't practice until Thursday. He was gone Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so that's why Beau got to start. And then obviously, EJ's had knee surgery and all that stuff, but man, he's in a good spot. He's feeling great. So it just gives him an opportunity to get back in that starting lineup. And we got a ton of confidence in him. He's a great player. He's as tough as they come. And it's good to have him healthy, and it's good to have a guy like him that, we can, position. So, we then got out, EJ and Beau, and really proud of Beau, man. Just a really good game for him, and had a couple scramble plays and just did a nice job. But, EJ and Beau and Ross, that's how we'll start. And also really proud of Dakari. He played really fast. He hasn't had as much opportunity this year, but he's really, a guy that we've just had to kind of leave in one spot and really let him really get ownership of that position. And he's done a nice job. But he's playing fast, and he's playing physical. He'll compete. So very encouraged with what he's doing and moving in a good direction for us. So that's where we are. It'll start with those three guys, and we'll go from there.
Again, you're locked into the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. We're on Twitter at Clemson Sports. Go follow us there in the website, clemsonsportstalk.com. So Dabo Swinney was also asked about this matchup with UConn, whether or not this would be an opportunity to get, Tyson Pumachan more reps and maybe rest DJ a little bit, given the fact that his knee was a little bit banged up during that ball game. And Dabo Swinney said, hey, this is the most important game of the season.
It's the biggest game of the year, man, Matt. We lose this game, there'll be a new head coach here. So we're going to just try to focus on playing our best game. And DJ's, good to go. And, it is what it is. But hopefully, for sure, we want to continue to use Tyson and complement the offense, and we'll do that. But we don't have any intentions at all of going into a game saying we're not going to play guys or anything like that. We're going in to try to, with a best of one mindset, and let's go play our best game. That's just the way we look at it. And I think if you don't look at it that way, you send the wrong message to your team.
And the final thing we'll get for you here from Dabo Swinney's Sunday teleconference, he was asked about DJ Uiagalelei's late touchdown run in that ball game. And part of the reason that run came, it was an 8-yard rush with 4 minutes and 12 seconds left in the game. At the time, Clemson trailed 24-20. That put the Tigers up 27-24. But DJ's run in that moment, you noticed he was limping. His knee was hurting. I mean, you could clearly see it. Here's what Dabo Swinney said he told his starting quarterback.
Yeah, I told him after the timeout, I said, hey, man, we need to take we need to really try one run here. And he was like, let's do it, And, I mean, he was – and I wasn't worried about him, like, injuring himself more or anything like that. He was just a little sore, and he'll get better each day. That is exactly what they thought. It's not anything that's surgical or anything like that. He'll be fine. But I felt like, it was just kind of a gut thing. I felt like that they would play coverage there, and they did. If you really watch it, I mean, their nickel guy, the cover down player. I mean, he really buzzed, and man, we were able to really hat it up clean, and I think we kind of caught him off guard just a little bit there. So it worked out for us, and it was a really gutty play by DJ. And not only that, but the 3rd and 2. We had just run the 3rd and 2 2 or 3 plays before, and he got a big first down right there. So it just felt like it was what we needed to do in that situation.
So there you go. Again, your Clemson Tigers survived 30-24 over the Louisville Cardinals on Saturday night in Louisville, Kentucky. Malik Cunningham was spectacular. DJ Uiagalelei played a good, solid ball game. BT Potter, Clemson's kicker, goes 3 for 3. And Clemson comes away with a 30-24 victory in this contest. 30-24, the Tigers over the Louisville Cardinals. Clemson's Atlantic Coast Conference Championship hopes are still alive. I know this. I did the scenario earlier, all those scenarios, yada, yada, yada. If Clemson loses that game to Louisville, you can just nada, worry about it because the Tigers would have been out for sure. We had a quick break. We'll come back with more of the show that shakes the Southland right after this. Final segment of hour number 1 here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you. We talked a lot of Clemson football, but how about the Clemson men's soccer team? Last night in their quarterfinal matchup against North Carolina at historic Riggs Field, Clemson wins it 2-1, heading to the semifinals. On Wednesday, they'll take on Duke, and in the Atlantic Coast Conference, the top 4 seeds are still in the tournament. So Clemson will take on the 3 seed Duke Blue Devils. The other game opposite of Clemson and Duke will be the number 1 seeded in the Atlantic Coast Conference, Pitt Panthers, as they take on Notre Dame. And the winner of those 2 matchups on Wednesday will face off on November 14th at 2 p.m. So a week from yesterday. So Sunday week, they'll have the ACC championship game. But I got to tell you, the announcers, man, the announcers of these games just are incredible. And it's not Clemson guys, but they're so into it. Clemson trailing 1-0 at this point, I think in the 38th minute of action. Isaiah Reed gets on the board. I want you to hear this, man, because this is good stuff. I don't care if you're a soccer fan or not. I mean, this this is always exciting when you hear this.
Right now, this is a wave coming from the Tigers.
Sela charging forward, trying to lay it off for Reed. Reed still gets it. Gets the shot off. Scores! We're not up at 1. Something out of nothing for Isaiah Reed. The Rock Hill, South Carolina product puts his squad back on level terms with 8:34 to go in the first.
So there you go. Isaiah Reed getting things equal at 1 apiece. And, I mean, the announcer is fired up there. But wait until you hear when Clemson hits the go-ahead goal. Charlie Quinn with a header to do that in the, I guess that was the 12 minutes remaining in the match. So whatever, 78th minute, something like that. Here's Charlie Quinn's go-ahead goal off a cross and header. And you would think this announcer, I'll be honest, you would think the announcer was like Mike Noonan, Clemson's head coach himself.
A team of Clemson's caliber, something to watch as 8 moves around in the middle of that midfield. Laid out to Asensio. He's got a lot of space. Crosses it, arriving on the back post, and it's in! What a pretty setup from Asensio with a finish from McNeil. McNeil had a rough first half. He gave away balls at critical times, but he stepped up here and has broken the deadlock. 2-1, Tigers up.
So there you go. Now, here's the thing. Again, this is the ACC network. This audio courtesy of the ACC network. This is not Clemson announcers. These are neutral announcers. I got to imagine in Chapel Hill, these calls did not go over well last night. Let's listen to that one again. That's spectacular.
A team of Clemson's caliber, something to watch as 8 moves around in the middle of that midfield. Laid out to Asensio. He's got a lot of space. Crosses it, arriving on the back post, and it's in!
Oh, goodness. Awesome. Again, Wednesday, Clemson and Duke will face off at Riggs Field. Pittsburgh and Notre Dame also on Wednesday. The winners advance to the ACC championship game on November the 14th. So a week from yesterday. How about the announcer, though, man? And it's in! Oh, boy. Congratulations to Coach Mike Noonan and that Clemson Tiger team, because since starting out hot this year, they have struggled to string together victories, and that's their 3rd win in a row. As a matter of fact, their 2nd matchup in the ACC tournament where they have come from behind after being down 1-0 to Louisville. They beat the Cardinals 5-1, and then last night against North Carolina, after being down 1-0 early, they come back and win that ball game. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. text line and phone line. Be a part of the show anytime, any place, anywhere. In the coaching, in the coaching ranks, in the coaches poll and in the AP poll, we got some news on Sunday, and I'll tell you what. I know Cincinnati was not happy about the rankings of the college football playoff, and then they went out and nearly lost to Tulsa, who fumbled the ball right at the goal line. Well, Cincinnati's not going to be too happy with the AP poll and the coaches poll here pretty soon because they're going to trend down and already are in some respects. Georgia, the number one team in the AP poll, followed by Cincinnati, Alabama 3, Oklahoma 4, and Oregon 5. But in the coaches poll, Cincinnati was overtaken by the Alabama Crimson Tide. And again, it's not that these polls matter per se, but they do. But I think it also gives us an interesting perspective because when the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings come out tomorrow, we'll have a revamped and a new look at these top 4, top 6, obviously with Michigan State losing. I didn't even bring that up. By the way, hey, thanks for stopping by the top 4, Michigan State. They go out and get beaten fairly handily by Purdue in that ball game. And so there's definitely going to be a shakeup, right? We know the shakeup is coming. But I think the thing that you have to ask yourself is, the conversation people have all the time, and I heard the Bear, Chris, whatever his name is, with Game Day talk about this. The college football playoff polls, they come out later, like the thing that everybody talked about for years. Well, you shouldn't have a poll at the beginning because it's all about where you start. But then these guys go and evaluate the teams, and they say, hey, Cincinnati, you're not good enough to be in the top 4, and everybody raises a ruckus about that. All that being said, again, it would appear that Cincinnati is going to have a incredibly tough time to make it into the college football playoff simply because of who they play. And they'll get credit for what Notre Dame is and their victory over Notre Dame. But that's the only thing they can stand on. They just have to root for Notre Dame because even their win over Indiana, it's not a win over a great Indiana team. It will be interesting to see where they play Cincinnati tomorrow night. Hour number 2, flip side.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you, William Qualkenbush. We're going to bump him back just a little bit here on a Monday afternoon. Again, Clemson 30, Louisville 24. The Tigers survive, and they are still technically in the mix of the ACC championship game. It'll take a lot of work, as I mentioned. I won't run through all the scenarios here that could play out, and I don't even want to think about what the tiebreaker scenario would be. But with the victory, Clemson still alive. I was talking about the polls before the break, and I know some of you will say, well, Swanee, where is Clemson currently? I mean, they are a 6-3 team, and yes, they're not playing great. Well, they're pretty much not even thought of right now in the polls. I mean, if you look at the AP poll, of course, it wraps with number 25, Pittsburgh, and I will spare you all of the other teams in here, but I'll give you some 6-3 teams if that makes you feel any better about how Clemson's thought of. Penn State at 6-3 is number 23 in the country. Also, Wisconsin is 6-3. They are currently ranked number 20 in the country. Auburn at number 16 is a 6-3 team. Your Clemson Tigers, nowhere to be found, not even in the others receiving votes category. The others receiving votes currently: Purdue, Arkansas, San Diego State, Utah, Iowa State, Kentucky, App State, SMU, and Mississippi State. That's right. Your Tigers nowhere to be found in the AP poll. As for the coaches poll, yes, you can find them. But again, the 6-3 Auburn team ranked number 20, 6-3 Penn State ranked 23rd, and 6-3 Wisconsin ranked 24th. Clemson checks in behind in the coaches poll behind Arkansas, San Diego State, Purdue, Kentucky, Utah, Iowa State, App State, SMU, Minnesota, Nevada, and Fresno State. Clemson just ahead of Tennessee, who got 2 votes, in Arizona State that got 1 vote. Your Tigers got 3 total votes in the AP and coaches polls. They are a 6-3 team. They are a team that was ranked inside the top 5 to begin the college football season. And I could make the argument, I was actually saying this to somebody this weekend, as crazy as it sounds, the team that has played Georgia the best, like Georgia's biggest blemish at this point, is a 10-3 win over a number 3 ranked Clemson team to open the season. So, look, I've talked about the benefit of the doubt for your Clemson Tigers in the past, but they don't currently receive said benefit of the doubt, given the fact it didn't take long for that benefit of the doubt to vanish. It kind of tells you how short-lived benefit of the doubt can be. By the way, Georgia beat Missouri 43-6 this past Saturday. Listen to the total number of points the Bulldogs have given up, and I'll also include the points scored. And you tell me about Clemson. And again, the Tigers have not been good, but comparative analysis, if you will. I mentioned Georgia beat Missouri 43-6 this past Saturday. They beat Florida 34-7. They beat Kentucky 30-13. Auburn 34-10. Arkansas 37-0. Vanderbilt 62-0. South Carolina 40-13. UAB 56-7. Clemson 10-3. A 3-point margin of victory against Clemson. A 49-point margin of victory against UAB. A 27 margin of victory against South Carolina, 62 against Vandy, 37 against Arkansas, 24 against Auburn, 17 against Kentucky, 27 against Florida, 37 against Missouri, and 7 again against Clemson. I mean, honestly, maybe the best thing Clemson's done this year is the way they played in that opener. And we've heard from coaches, including Dabo Swinney over the weekend. We've heard commentators talk about how tough that game was potentially for DJ because it was his first, real chance to be the guy. And then Clemson has 7 sacks in that ball game. They just can't score. And it just sort of spilled over. And Dabo Swinney said something after the game Saturday night. He said he felt like DJ was sort of coming out on the other side of the storm. On the other side of the storm that he has dealt with this entire season. And I like to think that would be the case. And I'd like to think that Clemson is going to finish strong. But at this point, no kidding you, the best thing Clemson's done this year might be what they did against the Bulldogs. And it's quite possible, given the way Clemson has played otherwise, that the worst thing Georgia has done this year is the way they played against Clemson. I mean, I don't know if those two things can exist in the same context, but in my brain, they do. In my brain, they do. The Bulldogs will take on Tennessee Saturday, 3:30 on CBS. They've also got a matchup with Charleston Southern and then Georgia Tech to wrap the season. So the final SEC game for the Bulldogs this Saturday as they look to lock up. Actually, they've already locked up, but put a bow on it, if you will. Doggone it, a trip to the SEC championship game where they will potentially face, I believe, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Auburn this past Saturday lost the ability to control, I think, their own destiny It is a mishmash of who knows what in the SEC at this point. Alabama's 5-1 overall in the conference. Texas A&M at 4-2. Auburn at 3-2, and Ole Miss at 3-2. I can tell you if Alabama wins in their final 2 conference games against Arkansas and Auburn, they're going to be in the SEC championship. But there are some scenarios still where Alabama could lose and get into the SEC championship also, which would be another crazy scenario. That would be if Alabama beats both of those teams I mentioned they'd be in. But if Alabama beats Arkansas but then loses to Auburn, here's the thing. Auburn could win both of their upcoming games against Mississippi State and South Carolina. Then the Tigers would need Texas A&M to lose one of its remaining SEC games against Ole Miss or LSU. But if the Aggies win both, they would win the tiebreaker over the 2 lost teams in Alabama and Auburn because of their head-to-head wins, which means Texas A&M will be in the SEC championship game and winner of the SEC West. Now, if Auburn beats Mississippi State and South Carolina, and if Texas A&M loses to either Ole Miss or LSU, the Aggies' 3rd conference loss would eliminate them in this scenario. Auburn would then win the tiebreaker over Alabama and potentially a 2-loss Ole Miss team, which would mean Auburn would win the SEC West. And then there's another scenario where Texas A&M would win the SEC West as well. So lots of scenarios out there for the folks over in the SEC. At this point, trying to dissect them and figure every single one of them out is incredibly difficult to do. But here's possibly the worst. If Alabama loses to Arkansas and Auburn, okay, so if the Alabama were to lose 2 games, there's still a chance, incredibly, that Alabama could win the SEC West with 3 losses, if you can believe this. Here's what would have to happen. You ready? Who's on first? Yeah, I'm not even about to try to get into that scenario, but there is a complicated path for Alabama with 3 losses. But again, teams still available or remaining that could win it. I mentioned A&M, Auburn, depending on what happens, and Alabama. I think those are the only 3 teams, except for if you went into that 3-way tiebreaker scenario, the one I said I didn't want to get into. And in that case, Ole Miss, I think, still has a chance in the SEC. So get what you can from that. There are multiple teams still available, even Ole Miss, who I didn't have in there earlier, but they would only be in, I think, in the quadruple 3-loss tiebreaker scenario, and then it would come down to whatever those numbers are, whatever the metrics are to decide to decide the winner. So I'll leave that up to the computers, since I certainly cannot do that math. 803-450-0086. Tomorrow, don't forget this too, the Clemson Tiger men's basketball team gets underway against Presbyterian in their season opener. Again, Clemson and Presbyterian at 7 o'clock, tipping things off for the Clemson Tiger basketball team. And then Friday, they'll take on Wofford at Little John Coliseum. So Brad Brownell, and again, this Clemson Tiger team, some undersized guards. I've said this, I have a lot of concerns about this group. I think a lot of people have concerns about this group simply because of the fact that, in a league where length and rangy guys tend to dominate, it just becomes increasingly more difficult. And the Terrell McIntyres of the world have their place. Nobody's denying that fact. The Alamir Dawes, the Nick Honors of the world have their place. But to win consistently in the Atlantic Coast Conference, I just don't think you can do it with small guards. I just don't think you can do it with small guards. Again, text line, phone line, 803-450-0086. Be a part of the show. Would love to have you hang out with us. Again, Clemson this Saturday, 30-24, victory over the Louisville Cardinals. We heard some from Dabo Swinney in hour number 1. Here's some of Tony Elliott following Clemson's victory over the Cardinals Saturday night. He was asked about quarterback DJ Uiagalelei and how he thought he performed in this contest.
Right. I thought, man, he started off really, really well. He placed the ball where it needed to be. You know, we took three shots early down the field. He put the ball where it needed to be. You know, thought Ross could have came down with that one over towards our sideline. Then something, you know, with his knee, got banged up a little bit. Came back and just battled through. I think it's his high for passing yards, but man, he just continues to get better, managing the game. You know, I thought he did some really good things. And then right there when we had to have it, man, he didn't flinch, even though he was limping into the end zone. Man, he pulled it down and put the ball in the end zone on a quarterback run. So really, really proud of him and just how he's battled through everything that's been placed in front of him.
Coach Elliott was also asked about just being able to come back the way Clemson did, win that ball game, and if that'll pay dividends for this group moving forward.
You know, I think so. I think what's happening is now guys are finding a way to win, you know, and not you know, playing not to lose. That's the confidence that we've had around here for a very, very long time. And you know, this group had to create their own identity. And man, it's been a crazy year. But these young men, they just continue to battle. Man, the bonds are going stronger and stronger. Man, we have more adversity. You got Kobe goes down, Joe's out. I mean, these guys just continue to believe and continue to fight, and just so happy for them to have some success. And that's going to be what we need going forward, because we got a goal to make this in November to remember. We got 3 weeks left, 1 week at a time, but it's going to take us, you know, playing our best football down the stretch. And in order to do that, we got to have confidence.
Hey, Tony, Lawton Swan, just Beau Collins' performance and the way he's kind of stepped up here lately, but maybe also updating us on Joe Ngata and his situation.
Yeah, man, Beau stepped up for us tonight, and really, really proud of him. Because if you look at early in the season, you know, he had a couple of drops that he battled through and came up big. First 100-yard receiving game of his career. He just continued, and we've been stretching him, man. He had to play, you know, multiple spots. He's really started to settle in. But if you watch Beau and you know Beau and you've been around him, I mean, he's an unbelievable young man. First and foremost, he works extremely, extremely hard. He came in very, very, very polished to begin with, and now his confidence is where it needs to be for him to go be able to play and display to everybody where he is. And Joe, you know, Joe battled through, you know, just you know, a foot deal he's been battling through, man. Found a way to get out there and give us as many snaps as he could. I hadn't had a chance to, you know, get the actual, you know, diagnosis post game there, but I'm sure that Coach Rooney will be able to update you there. But man, just proud of him too of battling through, because he's had you know, ups and downs, you know, for the last couple of years. But to see him just continue to battle and give us what he gave us, and he had some big plays for us too that we needed.
Tony Elliott was also asked about the 3 consecutive running plays on Clemson's last true offensive possession after Louisville turned the ball over. The Tigers would ultimately settle for a field goal. Here's what he said about the calls.
So Coach came over the headset and said, "Look, we're in, you know, all run it territory." So the biggest thing there, because we felt like we were in field goal range and the field goal would be big. You know, if we could pop a run, we wanted to try and pop a run there if we could. You know, even try to go to a quarterback run there at the end. We didn't get it, didn't execute it right. But that was a decision there. Is to run it 3 times. See, can we pop one? If not, then we'll kick the field goal and let the defense try and go win.
Again, you're listening to Tony Elliott after Clemson's victory over Louisville on Saturday night. That's his post-game audio. I asked him immediately after that, you know, was there any thought given to, if you're going to, you know, if it's going to be running plays, and you know DJ's a little bit banged up, is there any thought to putting Tyson Pumachan in to let him run those plays? Because they did bring Pumachan in on the 3rd down attempt when things had not gone well on 1st and 2nd down. Like, was there any thought to giving Pumachan that entire series? Here's what Tony Elliott had to say.
You know, there was some discussion there as well. But obviously DJ, you know, we put it in his hands. You know, he had been in the game. You know, Tyson had been in and out of the game, and just felt like you know, DJ was in a rhythm. You know, let's put the ball in his hands and let's try and give it to the backs and see could we hat him up and possibly pop him.
Elliott was also asked about the 4th and 1 call down at the goal line where Clemson got stuffed and turned the ball over on downs and didn't get points on what would have been a key. Really, I mean, you look back on it, a field goal in that scenario at the 1. I know it sounds ridiculous, and hindsight's 20/20, but that makes it a 9-point game at the end if you just kick the field goal there. But Clemson tried to punch it in and couldn't, and that's been something that's been a problem for him. Here's what Tony said about that play and what happened.
You know, it's tough. It's tough sledding down there. You're in a formation where they know what's coming. It looks like we had a little bit of, we gave up a little bit of penetration on the backside before Phil was able to get ready to go. Don't know if he had enough room to try and go over the top. I'll see that when I look at it on tape. But there was a situation that we would say, hey, we're going to run behind the big boys, and they made a play right there, and we didn't make the play all across the front to give us a chance to try and knock it in there with Phil.
Elliott was also asked about how DJ can improve on just some of the little things, and some of the key throws he missed are like little throws out to the flats, and he kind of patted himself on his chest like he knows he missed it. And how do you clean that up? Here's what Tony Elliott said:
just got to work through it. It's like any like a baseball hitter, a 3-point shooter. You just got to keep working at it, keep practicing, evaluating yourself. Looking at your fundamentals. And then also too, not making it bigger than what it is. He's improved. DJ, didn't start maybe the season the way he wanted to, but he's done the things we've asked him to do. He's worked on the things. He's amidst all the stuff that's going on around him, and he continues to get better. And his confidence is growing, and that's what we're going to focus on. Obviously, we'll coach him up to from whatever fundamental things we see on tape. But the biggest thing for him is, man, just keep playing ball, and those things are going to come.
So you just got to work through it. Tony Elliott again talking about DJ Uiagalelei and his performance. Again, I thought it would be his best performance. It was a good performance, a solid performance. I mean, I didn't think, honestly, there weren't a lot of moments. I know I mentioned the missed throws a few minutes ago, but even that opening drive where Clemson scores in just 3 plays to tie the game up, you thought, okay, that's what we are accustomed to. Now, it didn't finish the way you hoped. It didn't finish the way it had been. And Sweeney said something funny after the game, and I don't know if I have it readily available, but he said for so many years, people have been getting bored watching our games. Tiger fans, essentially kind of the message he said, but he said, I sure hope y'all are engaged now. Something like that, because, I mean, literally every game for this Clemson Tiger team this year has come down to the wire. Every single game. I mean, including that opener against Georgia. 10-3, 49-3 against South Carolina State. Throw that one out, though. All right, let's do this. We did Georgia earlier, but let's only do Power 5 games for Clemson. Lost by 7, won by 6. Lost by 6, won by 6, won by 3, lost by 10, won by 10, won by 6. That's this season for your Clemson Tigers in a nutshell. It has been tight against Power 5 teams. William Qualkenbush joins the program next. Stay with us. Back at it on a Monday afternoon, a little later than usual, but not much later. William Qualkenbush steps into the arena to hang out with us here. Qualk, man, let me tell you, it's been a different year. I don't know after all of the weeks of watching this Clemson team if it's normal, but Dabo Swinney said something after the ballgame on Saturday that kind of made me chuckle. He joked about the fact that Clemson had been obliterating people for a while and how fans had lost some interest. He said, I sure hope everyone out there is still engaged. When you watch this team, man, you can't help but be engaged. I mean, they come down to the wire every single weekend, it seems.
Well, yes. And look, we talked about this earlier today. I mean, I think it's become in vogue, and I've made the mistake too of treating some of Clemson's, injury luck and things like that as just simply a product of a bad year and it'll turn around, et cetera. But the more of these really tight games Clemson finds itself in, Swanee, the more that I'm realizing that these things may be related. I mean, they're asking guys to play, to use a baseball analogy that I used today on our show. I said, there's a difference between, high intensity pitches and low intensity pitches. And so just looking at a guy's pitch count doesn't necessarily tell you the story, and pitchers will tell you and coaches will tell you. Sometimes you got to take a guy out before quote unquote, the pitch limit or whatever, because he's already reached the max that he can give you in a game because all of his pitches are high intensity. So not only do you have guys who, in previous years in a 50-6 win over every Atlantic Division team would have been sitting on the sideline tap the game. Now they're playing critical series in the fourth quarter. They're taking a physical beating. It started against Georgia and has gone through. You've only had one game where you can really rest guys, and it was the second game of the season. And every week up to this point, guys have been in the battle for the duration, as long as they can stand it. And so, yeah, I mean, Clemson's taking us on a ride, but it's going to be nice, not necessarily from a fan perspective or from a viewership perspective, but from a program building perspective, to have a game in which you can just kind of sit back, let some of the backups play, and rest and recoup some guys, give them a handful of good snaps, and get them out of there. That way they're refreshed and ready to go for 2 big games coming down the stretch.
William Qualkenbush again, out of bounds with Qualk and Kelly, 105.5 The Roar each and every day from noon until 3 o'clock. And Qualk, what was your assessment of DJ Uiagalelei's, just his performance? I thought he was going to have a good game. And honestly, I know he got a little banged up, but I thought overall he had a pretty good performance, especially given the fact that Malik Cunningham, his counter on the other side sort of came out on fire, especially on the ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to take that into account, right? The guy on the other side was brilliant, and so you can't let that type of performance wipe the shine off of what DJ did, because what DJ did was play his best game. He was 18 of 30 throwing the ball in intermediate throws, 5 to 14 yards. That's really been the issue for DJ, is finding the timing and getting the velocity right, getting the touch right on those intermediate throws. He was 9 for 12 in a game. That is in my opinion, that is a significant step forward for him, because that's something that plays just about every week. Sometimes teams are going to give away deep coverage. Sometimes teams are going to give away something underneath, but everybody's giving away something in the middle of the field if he'll take it. And he took it in this game. And then you mentioned the injury. Look, I do not think it's overstating it to say that if you can, if you could sort of take a microscope and look into the heartbeat of Clemson football right now, watching DJ limp for an 8-yard touchdown run after Will Shipley's been gutting it out. EJ Williams' entire body is broken and mending. You've got guys playing through pain all over the place. To see DJ do it, I've questioned at times this year if he's really doing a good job leading guys, if they're looking to him, or if they're looking around at somebody else, if they've already written him off as a leader. I think you could see when he limps the ball in, when he's getting tough yards on 3rd and short, and they know how banged up he is, there's no other recourse. You're going to follow that guy. You're going to be inspired by that performance. And so I think, not only is the physical play turning around, but sort of the emotional play and the spiritual play and the ability to lead the team with his actions. And even, we've heard recently, increasingly with words, those are the steps that DJ took. I don't think it's even close. I don't think any of his other performances have been even close. I think this is the best game that he's played this year, no doubt.
He's on Twitter at Qualt Talk. And again, you can follow him over there and interact with him. A great follow on social media. So with all that on the table, Qualk, I mean, can we expect to see a trend of this type of play from DJ? Because this weekend against UConn, I don't think it's going to be necessary, but certainly against Wake Forest and what feels like a resurgent South Carolina team possibly looming, you're going to have good play from your starting quarterback.
Oh, no question. I think the next step for DJ is to go and own an inferior opponent. Remember, he didn't really do that against South Carolina State. There were people going, maybe the offense looks a little better, but it's not quite as good as it should look. I think you got to go out and you got to pretty well dominate UConn for the times that you're in. Maybe 1-2 empty series at most, but you got to score just about every time. You've got to be able to run the ball effectively, put the ball where the receivers can make a play. And much like you did on Saturday, don't turn the ball over. I mean, that really, the Florida State game was I thought a really good performance from DJ, other than his just absolutely ridiculous inability to protect the football on a strip sack, fumble recovery for a touchdown. Other than that, he played great. Against Louisville, he didn't have that one play. Now you've got to level it up without, resorting back to some of the things you were doing before. So that, I believe, is the next step for DJ, is to treat an opponent the way they should be treated, and you should dominate UConn with that, with the rapport that he's getting with Beau Collins. You don't haven't got it, but that's fine. Justin Ross has got exactly 5 catches in 4 straight games, so he's consistent. You got Allen now at tight end. Williams is out there. You've got running backs. You've got 3 guys, and even if 1 or 2 go out, you got an opportunity to get yards. So I think the pieces are falling into place for him, if he plays well, to experience legitimate success moving forward.
Again, follow him on Twitter at Qualt Talk. William Qualkenbush hanging out with us for a few more minutes on a Monday afternoon. 803-450-1037 0086. Text line, phone line, 803-450-0086. Qualt, we'll put you on hold, man. We'll come back. I want to talk to you about defense, and also want to get into a little bit with Qualt about the Clemson Tiger basketball team as well, as they prepare to kick off their season tomorrow at Little John Coliseum. Again, your website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Put the .com on it. Doggone it. That's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. We'll be right back. It is a Monday afternoon. Clemson Sports Talk. William Qualkenbush with us. Qualk, I want to talk to you about the Clemson defense, and we didn't get a chance to mention them in the opening segment of our interview, but just their play, and especially the 4 plays at the end of that game to keep Louisville out of the end zone. I mean, you know how special Brent Venables is. Nobody's ever questioned that. But as a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes the defensive side of the ball, I don't know if he would have had it any other way than the way that game concluded.
Well, I think you would have liked to maybe break up the 45-yard pass and maybe, Goodrich intercept the ball. But I get what you're saying, though, Swanee. I mean, I think Brent Venables, he just has a knack, right, for coming up with exactly the right play call, exactly the right, exactly the right scheme, exactly the right tendency to point out on the offense and to try to attack. And in that instance, too, you got to think Dabo's got 2 timeouts in his pocket. He used 1, but Louisville couldn't stop the clock. And so you're having to go with basically your array of 2-point plays where you were on the field. You're going with your array of 2-point plays. And probably those were going to involve some mobility from your quarterback. I mean, it's plain as day. You couldn't stop the clock if you're Louisville to go and draw up something new or figure out something new. So you're trying to figure it out on the fly. I think that did. I was kind of questioning whether Dabo Swinney should have used that last timeout for clock management purposes down there. But I think ultimately it worked out, because if you're Scott Satterfield, without a chance to rally the troops, you're just going to have to go with what you planned. And what you planned, I'm sure, is Cunningham on the move with an opportunity to run or pass. Clemson covered the pass part and then was able to cover the run part because Cunningham was hobbled and because the types of athletes you put on the edge, like Xavier Thomas, Andrew Makuba, R.J. Mickens, made a couple of great plays on that last drive apiece. So I just feel like when you put the kind of athletes Clemson has in those positions, they somehow, it seems like you're playing against 17, 18 guys, because they just seem to know exactly where you want to go with the football.
You mentioned Makuba and Mickens, those 2 young guys out of the state of Texas having an impact in this ballgame. And, Makuba's snaps had been down, but, man, what you really saw from him is some tremendous closing speed. And I thought the first play from scrimmage down there at the goal line for Louisville was probably their best opportunity to score. I brought that up earlier. And just to see Mickens, conversely, the other kid from Texas, tracking him down from behind. I mean, those 2 guys are young, and they're making some key plays for that defense.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I said today there was this narrative out there, and we heard it, and you can see it on message boards and Twitter and things like that. If Clemson didn't play the coach's kids so much, Joseph Charleston wouldn't be in the portal. And I think it's pretty clear now that Joseph Charleston was not in the portal because of guys named Venables. It was because of Andrew Makuba and R.J. Mickens and the array of young defensive backs, Jalen Phillips in there as well, who are flat out making plays. Like Makuba's closing speed, you talked about, his closing speed was unbelievable. Cunningham's the best athlete on the field, and he's walking them down. These guys, they're going to be around for a while. They're going to continue to make these kinds of plays. I'm going to say that not since Jaron Kearse have we seen a guy do what Andrew Makuba's done as a true freshman at safety in terms of the range, his ability to erase mistakes. Now, we know Kearse could also run into mistakes because he'd cheat and he would try to jump into the box and he could be baited with double moves and things like that. So Makuba's still got something to prove there. But we're talking about just raw clay. I mean, Jaron Kearse is still in the league, Swanee. I think that's the caliber of player that Andrew Makuba has shown very quickly since he got to campus.
Qual, let me ask you this. When you look at the Clemson secondary at this point, I know that there have been some questions, I guess, during the offseason with Darion Kendrick moving on. What have you thought of the play? You mentioned the big one, the 45-yarder. I know Mario Goodrich, Swinney said yesterday during his press conference or teleconference that he probably should have just tackled him and take the pass interference. You kind of got to know situationally what's the best move. But, I mean, how would you rate how Mario Goodrich has played this season opposite of Andrew Booth?
Oh, I think Goodrich has been great. Look, David Hale from ESPN has done a really good job of, blowing the trumpet, so to speak, and sounding the alarm about Goodrich. If you look statistically, Goodrich has been better than Booth in terms of balls in the air. Now, again, you're talking about Booth, who a lot of guys are going to attack Goodrich because Booth's reputation precedes him, and because of his ability to make tackles. You're talking about a guy who probably will let a few more catches go, knowing that he's going to bring the guy to the ground. In fact, he missed a tackle early in the game against Louisville, and it might be the first one I've seen him miss all season long. You just don't see that from Andrew Booth. Goodrich is a very good second corner. I would say he's had, in some regards, an all-ACC caliber season from a coverage standpoint. And to be quite honest, Swanee, other than the 45-yard catch, name another time that Mario Goodrich has been victimized downfield all year. I can't think of it. The guy's just absolutely not giving up anything. And like I said, even the fourth down, the great catch where the Louisville receiver drags his toe, Goodrich gets a hand on the ball. I mean, he's there. He's going to have a PBU. If that thing falls incomplete, the guy just makes a great catch. So, yeah, I think you can be nothing but pleased about the job that Goodrich has done in making people forget all about Darion Kendrick, because you haven't had issues either with availability or with just flat-out ability to play the position with Goodrich this year, or really with any of the other backups that have come in.
But how about what we saw from Beau Collins, not just this past Saturday, but also just sort of the feeling surrounding him as a capable product at wideout?
Well, let me attack the first point first, because, you're talking about those, and I would say the two 2019 signees, Ladson and Ngata, have just been a disappointment, and it's been their inability to stay on the field. Ngata tried to play through, it looked like he tried to play through a foot injury. I mean, I don't know if you saw the replay, but I mean, he couldn't even cut back for the ball. He didn't look very good coming off the line either. So that's a guy who was trying to play through pain during the game, just couldn't do it. Yeah, so that has really marked the wide receiver spot in each of the last two seasons, really dating back to the 2019 semifinal win over Ohio State, where famously Clemson didn't have Ross or Higgins and was able to gut out a win anyway. Since that point, Clemson's had issues with availability at receiver. You love Beau Collins, man. Collins had over 100 yards. He didn't have 100 yards in the whole season up until Saturday, and he played fantastic. Got the downfield shot. He looks comfortable in the slot. DJ feels like he's comfortable finding him. Again, as I said, Ross, 5 catches each of the last 4 games.
Qual, let me tell you what. Let me put you on hold there. I want you to finish up with the wide receivers when we get back. 803-450-0086.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment all day, Monday afternoon. William Qualkenbush still with us. Qual, you were talking about the wide receivers, but how about a guy like EJ Williams, man, who's just playing through pain?
You can talk about injuries all you want to with Ngata and Ladson, and I'm not going to say those guys should be playing through pain, because I don't know what kind of injuries. There's some injuries you can play through, and there's some that you can't. So I don't want to cast aspersions here. But EJ Williams was going to have thumb surgery, and he said, "Wrap it up and let's go." They had to make him get his knee scoped. This is a different kind of cat with a different kind of mentality, where he ain't going to just, he ain't just going to be hurt and sit down. You're going to have to make him sit down. That tells me that the receiving position is in very good hands moving forward. And I love that some of the leadership in that regard are young players, where the last couple seasons has been like fifth-year seniors who have been in the program a million years but haven't done much, like a Cornell Powell and people like that. Amari Rogers in there as well as a fourth-year guy. But now, it's young guys providing that type of leadership both on the field and then with the way that they carry themselves.
Final couple of seconds here with William Qualkenbush. We'll give you probably 2 or 3 questions. Real quick, Qualk, on the basketball team. I still think my biggest concern, and I don't know how it's not the number one concern almost every season for this Clemson team, is size on the perimeter. I think it affects you offensively. I think it absolutely affects you in this league defensively. And with Nick Honor and Alamir Dawes both being undersized, what are your thoughts on what Clemson can do effectively this year, just with the backcourt and what it'll take to win at a high level in the league?
Well, I think you're going to have to play a little bit differently because P.J. Hall is better with his back to the basket and in the middle, in sort of the mid-range area than Amir Sims. Amir Sims was a legitimate point forward at times, so you can't just run everything you're doing through him. I think this will be the telltale sign. Can this team and coaching staff, and I think that's a significant difference there, can this team and coaching staff get comfortable running in transition on a routine basis? Because I think long possessions in a half court are going to be a problem for this team, because not only are they undersized in the backcourt, but they're going to be undersized minus P.J. Hall because Ian Shiplin's still kind of thin. He still needs a year to bulk up inside. You're going to be undersized everywhere. And I don't think that bodes well offensively, because last year you got guys like Clyde Trapp who could really play bigger than himself. I think Collins could certainly do that for you on the wing. But again, we need to see that. Nas Bohannon is a guy that can play a little bit bigger than maybe himself. But boy, Clemson does feel like the smallest team on the floor, or the smaller team on the floor every time they get out there. And, so I think that's going to be a problem. Can they do that? The other thing is, you talked about defense. I think the team defensive concept is going to be fine. The issue is going to be, can you keep P.J. Hall on the floor for offense while you're playing defense? I was pleasantly surprised in the scrimmage that he was able to put up 20-plus points without getting in foul trouble. If Hall spends the whole year doing what he did last year, playing 2 minutes, getting 2 fouls, and sitting down, and you got to go to the bench, then this team is going to be really small in a hurry. And I just think a lot of it's going to be his ability to defend without fouling instead of just trying to protect himself and giving up buckets just to stay on the floor. I think if you get to that point, you lose a lot of who you are defensively, and I just don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, it's so strange that this year, obviously, Clemson losing so many players that sort of fit that billing of what maybe a Olivier Maxence Prosper could have given this team, to just not really have that. And I like what we've seen from this team under Brad Brownell in recent years. You mentioned the defensive-minded concepts. I just have so much concern about size on the perimeter. I just think that's going to tear this team up this year. Qualt, man, thank you, buddy. I wish we had more time to talk a little bit more hoops with you, but we'll see how they do. I mean, these first couple of games should be some chances to test the water, if you will, before hitting into Atlantic Coast Conference play and the Big Ten tournament and all that, or the Big Ten ACC matchup. But all in all, man, I think the length of this team is going to be a huge issue moving forward. Buddy, have a great week, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Juan. We got a lot more time to talk hoops, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Again, William Qualkenbush on Twitter at Qualk Talk. All right, we got several messages that came into the show. B-Man in SC hits us up and says, Swanee, we were close. Go Tigers. Can't wait for Wake. He says, glad to see the offense steadily improving. Very excited about the last games and next year. Good to see DJ being a little less laid back. Wig hits me up. I hadn't heard from Wig 81 in a while. He's going to try to connect with me in the UConn game. Wig, I'll text you back on that one, man. He was a winner of one of our limited edition Clemson footballs. John in Archdale, who threw out a ton of great shows to watch, also says, Swanee, looking at the playing time breakdown for the Louisville game, and noticed that the entire five offensive linemen played the starting five offensive linemen played the entire game. They had all 70 snaps. Yeah, I think Dabo Swinney said something about that yesterday as well during his teleconference with the media. And then Tiger Chuck says, watch how well we run the ball in spread formations compared to when we run the ball with 10 personnel with 2 tight ends. Says Shipley needs space and spreading teams out. Opening up the box leaves them one-on-one with linebackers. Advantage Shipley. So there you go. So that comes to us from Tiger Chuck. And again, thank you to everybody for being a part of the program. And I know Tim gave us a call. Tim, I didn't get a chance to get it in today. I will squeeze it in tomorrow, my man. But thank you, sir, for being a part of the show as well. Again, thank you to William Qualkenbush for hanging out with us. Your Tigers come away with a 30-24 victory over the weekend against Louisville. We'll continue to react to that, plus much more here on the show that shakes the Southland when we get back after it tomorrow. Until then, as always, y'all take care now and go Tigers.